Thank you for viewing this Chester Historical Society program. I'm Fran Bertelli.
And I'm Bill Bertelli.
We are children of Louis and Alice Bertelli, who relocated the Pratt House in 1966. We are standing in front of the parcel of land where the Dr. Ambrose Pratt House, built in 1820, stood for almost 150 years. We thought you may want to see how the Pratt House was actually relocated from this original location on Middlesex Avenue, which is across the street from St. Joseph's Church, to its current location on Pratt Street, 900 feet behind where we're standing, now the Lewitt home. We also have a few memories of living in the house to share.
So let's begin.
Abram Mitchell built the house in 1820. According to Dr. Pratt's daughter, Harriet, Abram Mitchell, quote, lost all his money, ruined by endorsing a note, unquote. Dr. Pratt's father-in-law, George Spencer, bought the house as a wedding present for his daughter, Julia Minerva Spencer. Julia and Dr. Pratt were married on November 17, 1844. This is an early photo of the Pratt house while the Dr. Pratt family lived there. I don't know the date of the photo, and it's the only photo that I've seen with this beautiful fencing around the property. The fencing it's just simply exquisite. The Pratt family lived in the house for 90 years. This is a photo of the house when the Raymond Bellows family owned it from the mid-1930s to 1954, when they sold it to St. Joseph's Church. The Bellows family used it as a guest house, what we now call a bed and breakfast. This is the Pratt House when it was owned by St. Joseph's Church from 1954 to 1966 and was the church parish center. It was used for Sunday school classes, meetings, bake sales, etc. The parish made plans to build a new, large parish center with a big parking lot and needed the Pratt House removed. In February of 1966, St. Joseph's Church sold the Pratt House to our parents, Louis and Alice Bertelli, with the conditions the house would be removed very quickly and the area where the house stood would be filled in and graded.
Okay, Mom and Dad now own the house. Good and bad. The contract specified a time period of 30 days for the complete removal of the building from church property. There was a penalty of $30 per each day of noncompliance. Also in the contract, if the house was not moved in a timely manner, the church had the contractual right to hire services to complete the removal, including tearing down the house in place at the owner's expense. Initial location for the move was anticipated to be a property on School Lane, just north of North Quarter Park. Costs associated with such a move along the busy Route 9, the main road between Old Saybrook and Middletown, now known as Route 154, with closing the roads, fire and police, and raising of the CL&P power lines and 3 SNET trunk telephone lines, would be a challenge. This is a photo of a typical telephone trunk line of 1,800 wires. There would have been 3 of these cables to re-terminate at both ends at 2 separate locations. Time-consuming and expensive. Not an option. Now what?
An alternative site was needed, else quickly dismantle the house and save the 8 hand-carved fireplace mantles, the eyebrow attic windows, and the rare spiderweb window. It turned out Dr. Pratt's grandson, Gerard Spencer of Chester, had a 3-acre tract of land located 900 feet west up the hill from the back of the Pratt House. He sold it to our parents in the nick of time so the house could be moved. Louis Turgeon and Sons, Incorporated, who were building movers in Newington, Connecticut, was contracted to move the house. The Turgeon Company charged approximately $14,000 for the move, and that would be about $131,000 in today's dollars. It was the largest and heaviest structure the Turgeon Company ever moved. This photo was taken by Chester resident Harry Orton Jones of the home's rare spiderweb window on the second floor looking out at St. Joseph's Church. This photo was also taken by Harry Orton Jones from the north attic window looking out at what was Ridge O'Sullivan's house, originally the Dr. Turner house. I should also mention Harry Orton Jones and his wife Gwendolyn were very active members in the Historical Society, and Harry took a lot of professional photographs, not just of the Pratt House move, but he took photographs all over town.
March 11th, 1966. Slowly moving its way up the hill. The house is supported by 3 8-wheeled truck assemblies, slowly rolling on top of wood planks placed on the ground. 2 truck assemblies are located under the main part of the house, with the other assembly underneath the L part. A truck is a technical term for a wheeled device to transverse over a surface. You may be familiar with the term hand truck that is used to move home appliances and furniture. Note the chimney brace supports and the front porch retaining cable and supports for the move. I changed the brightness and contrast in this photo to highlight the undercarriage and bracing that is being used to support the 3 truck assemblies. It was rather sophisticated in order to properly support the weight of the house, plus the heavy brick chimneys, without sag or stress. A back view of the house. Note the difference in brightness and the clapboard width of that second-story L addition. Notes written by Harriet Pratt in 1907 indicated the L was originally only 1 story. Typically back in the day, a piece of an existing home was moved and attached to an existing structure instead of building it from scratch. Our dad determined the first story of the L to actually be older than the 1820 build of the main house. Again, according to Harriet Pratt, the L's second story was added, as she quoted its roof raised, to provide extra bedrooms when the house was used by Dr. Pratt as a sanitarium, known as the Chester Water Cure. 2 front truck assemblies supporting the main house and the attached pull cables to the winch vehicles. Note the truck assembly tires riding atop the wood planks. The planks were necessary so that the wheels wouldn't sink into the ground. Close-up of support beams and truck wheels riding on the wood planks. This photo provides a good perspective to gauge how large these assemblies were. Each truck assembly had 8 pneumatic tires. So how fast did the house move on those wheels? A jog? A fast walk? Slow crawl? Being an engineer, I calculated that if the house moved at an average value of 6 inches per minute, one would take approximately 30 hours to move the 900-foot distance. With weather, excavation work to create a constant slope to move up the hill, and machinery repositioning, it probably took a total of 2 to 3 weeks from the start of the move to its final location. I do recall arriving at the house after school one day, witnessing the wheels of the truck assemblies barely moving at a steady rotational speed. Note the reinforcement support of the front porch in addition to the retention cable that went through the wall for retention. Another view of the back. Note the wooden planks and the large steel pull rope cable on the ground. March 18th, 1966, a week later. Still slowly making progress towards the hill. The brightness of this picture was enhanced to better show the various vehicles used for the move. Note the vehicle wheels blocked with the wooden planks. Let's pause here to take a moment and discuss what could have gone wrong here during the move. A pull cable snap, truck assembly failure, sink into the ground, into the mud. The L part separates from the main house, causing the main house to tip over. Fortunately, none of those things occurred, but they certainly could have. This is the area where the house originally sat. This had to be filled in and graded per contract. Note the old steam boiler laying on its side. We resurrected that boiler and reused it in its capacity as a steam heat boiler for our first winter in December 1966. And with no insulation in that house because it was plank construction, we went through many a tank of fuel oil, and our oil tank was 1,000-gallon size.
This is the house at its destination on Pratt Street. It's interesting to know that before the house was moved, there was a glass on the kitchen counter. After the move, the glass was still in the same place on the counter. It didn't tip over or fall during the move. Just amazing, but the glass was intact.
Notice the huge piles of dirt stacked up around the house. Buddy Zanardi and his crew worked with tenacity and vigor to move literally multiple tons of earth throughout the relocation process. The truck assemblies and some bracing were removed and replaced with plank support pallets in the corners. Note the foundation footings already poured, along with the chimney support pads. We are now ready for foundation walls to be formed up and the concrete poured. The foundation walls after the forms were removed. Note the gap between the house and the foundation wall, leaving space for the original stones to be placed. Our brother Bob is standing atop the front steps foundation wall. Due to the sheer weight of those front steps, such a foundation was necessary to avoid settling into the ground.
And here we have Louis Bertelli and Bill Bertelli replacing the original stones around the foundation. The Jeep was owned by our brother Jim and was used to move the stones from a large pile to where they were going to be installed. Jim made a custom platform making use of the snowplow equipment he fabricated on his Jeep. Bill was the Jeep driver for this project. I believe he was about 12 years old.
Stone replacement completed. The large front step stones are next. That's Fran sitting there being useless with me gesturing, "Move! We need to get to work!"
This is a winter scene taken from the rear of the house. This is the Pratt House as it looked in the late 1970s. The State of Connecticut Historical Commission informed our parents about a historic preservation matching grant program administered by the U.S. Department of the Interior. Our parents applied for and received a matching grant from the U.S. Department of Interior to paint, reshingle, and install new copper flashing on the house. The application process was very rigorous, and proof was required that the house was originally white with dark green shutters. The quality of the paint and wood shingles also had to be approved. Interim reports had to be provided, and a final report was provided to the Department of Interior with photos of the completed work and copies of the bills from the vendors who did the work. This is a photo of our parents, Louis Nathan Bertelli and Alice Howell Bertelli, that was taken in the 1970s. Alice and Louis were responsible for the entire project of moving the Dr. Pratt House. We have a few memories to share with you of living in the Pratt House. And the first one is my brothers and I made a time capsule to put under the back brownstone steps before they were reinstalled. I believe the time capsule may have been a coffee can, but we can't be sure. None of us remember. We don't recall exactly what was in it, and we thought it would be there forever. We had fun putting things in it, even though we don't remember what we put in it. And Bill said there may have been a beer bottle in that can. but we don't know. I understand when the Lewitts did some renovating, the time capsule was unearthed. During our first or second Christmas in the house, we put a single white electric candle in each window, and this was before there were battery candles. Reverend Robert Beardsley, the priest at St. Joseph's Church, could see the candles from the church rectory and enjoyed them very, very much. So we did that for many years. It was a tradition that we did. Bill was the candle installer. He secured each candle to the window with a blue fabric ribbon and 2 thumbtacks. I remember that specifically. And none of the candles ever fell off the windowsill. Never. Good job, Bill. Our mother created a rose garden adjacent to the house. Alice and Gerard Spencer gave her several rose bushes for the garden. Our mother and father had a vegetable garden, and our father planted a wildflower garden. So far, we've focused on the past, the history of the Pratt House, its relocation in 1966, and some memories of when we lived in the house.
We are concluding this program in the present.
We are standing in front of the Pratt House as it now looks in 2023. As always, the beauty of the house speaks for itself.
Thank you for watching our program.